Hey everybody, I'm back today with episode 3 of my series 5 Iconic Albums, 1 Legendary Recording Studio. Episode 1 I covered Townhouse Studios in London, and then we went across the pond for episode 2, the Memphis, Tennessee Ardent Studios. And today we're going to go back to London, and I'm going to take a look at 5 incredible albums. If you don't have these albums in your collection, these are must-haves. I'm going to break them down a little bit, talk a little bit about their history and the history of the recording studio. That studio is Trident Studios, situated right in the middle of central London in the Soho district. And let's talk about it. Trident Studios was established in 1967 in London, and its first serious claim to fame was the fact that Paul McCartney and the Beatles ankled out of Abbey Road one afternoon when they heard that Trident had an 8-track console. At this point in time, Abbey Road still had a 4-track console. So they were hot and heavy in the whole recording process for the White Album. And they ended up recording Hey Jude at Trident, as well as Dear Prudence, a couple other songs as well that are on the White Album. And one of the more interesting aspects of Trident Studios is they had a very, very distinctive grand piano installed in the main studio. And it's at this piano that McCartney sat down and recorded 4 takes of Hey Jude. They eventually used take 1 on that piano, and that piano went on to become kind of a renowned piece in the recording industry because it has been featured on all of the albums I'm going to talk about today and many, many, many famous, incredible songs. Trident Studios is actually still around. It's an interesting place. It's very, very, from the outside, nondescript. If you were walking by before 2017, unless you were on a guided walk like I was, I took a Beatles walk in London 15 years ago, and Trident Studios was on the tour, and we stopped, and the guide pointed it out and talked about the history and the White Album. But if you were on your own, just walking by, as thousands of people do every day, up until 2017, you probably wouldn't have known anything. In 2017, there was one of the very cool London Blue plaques installed just above the main entrance to Trident, in honor of David Bowie and the Bowie albums that were recorded at Trident. So very, very cool thing. I've got a picture of it here. I'm showing you the video, but I think Ken Scott may have been there, who was the producer for Hunky Dory and lots of other fantastic albums. But that's the location, central London. But going from the outside, you'd have no clue that was a very, very famous recording studio. It's on a little pedestrian street called St. Anne's Court in Soho, London. Recorded over just a couple of recording sessions in February 1971, and then in the spring of 71. I told you there were going to be some heavy hitters in this group of albums today, and this is no exception. Mad Men Across the Water, the 1971 Elton John album. This is a very early American pressing. It's got kind of that rough texture to it. It's supposed to be kind of mimicking denim. Blue jean, there is a back cover. Is there a better side of music out there? This definitely ranks up there. We've got Tiny Dancer, Leave On, Razorface, Madmen Across the Water, just an incredible group of songs, and Elton John was just firing on all cylinders. Gus Dudgeon produced the album. It was recorded, like I mentioned, at Trident, and just an iconic album. These early first pressings sound excellent, and you can find these, out and about. The difficulty is trying to find this thing in really good condition because they got played a lot. But I'm lucky to have a very, very dead silent, almost near mint copy of this, and it's one of my favorite albums in the collection. Also recorded in 1971 and released in December is one of my favorite Bowie albums. That's Hunky Dory. What an amazing piece of work. And talking about that piano, that famous piano again, Rick Wakeman is all over this album. In the liner notes, Bowie said that he played some of the easier, non-complicated piano parts, and then Wakeman played everything else. There is just incredible piano throughout this album, and especially on Life on Mars. Life on Mars is track 3 on side 1. Just an incredible song. Famously, it was inspired by Frank Sinatra's My Way. You can look at the credits on the back cover, and Bowie is written inspired by Frankie, or inspired by Frankie, because it's in the same key as My Way. And it's just an incredible song. This is an incredible album.
Tell us about the recording of this.
I remember leaving there in St Anne's Court at Trident Studios and coming home and saying to a couple of friends that I met that evening in a local pub that I just played on what I considered to be the best song I'd ever had the privilege to work on.
And why do you think it was so fantastic?
It had every single ingredient. I mean, the great thing about David was he was a wonderful melody man, but it wasn't just the melodies. He had great ideas for chord structures and would always throw in the odd surprise when you were least expecting it. And that's what was so great about playing his stuff. He'd be teaching you a song and you'd be going along, and then suddenly you'd think, oh, I know how this is going to go, and then it would change. Very clever guy.
Okay, Rick, take it away.
Mick Ronson had all of the guitar parts, of course, lead guitar, and arranged all of the fantastic string arrangements as well. That is Hunky Dory. I have a really nice reissue. It sounds really, really nice. It's got that replicated custom label with Bowie in place of RCA. That's Hunky Dory, David Bowie, 1971. One of many, many, many incredible albums recorded at Trident Studios. Lou Reed was on the same label as David Bowie in the early 1970s. And following the success of Hunky Dory, there were some ideas tossed around that maybe Lou Reed was getting ready to record his second solo album, and why don't we have Bowie produce Lou's second album? And Bowie had actually, there are some references to the Velvet Underground and Lou Reed in the liner notes in Hunky Dory. Bowie was definitely a fan of Lou Reed and Velvet Underground, Andy Warhol, etc. And so the decision was made, sure, Bowie's going to produce what would become Transformer, but Bowie actually brought in Mick Ronson to kind of share the production duties with himself. So it was Bowie and Mick Ronson who would go on and produce one of Lou Reed's most famous, most iconic solo albums, and that is Transformer, which was released. Transformer was recorded in August of 1972. It was eventually released later that fall. And this is a Speaker's Corner pressing, which is very, very highly recommended if you can get your hands on one of these. Just incredibly dynamic recording. Huge soundstage. Very, very, very punchy as far as the bass is concerned. And when we talk about the bass and Transformer, we have to talk about Walk on the Wild Side.
So why, you may ask, have I come to leafy Sussex? Well, not far from here lives the man who made that song instantly recognisable with his unforgettable bass line.
Said, hey, babe, take a walk on the wild side.
In the early 1970s, Herbie Flowers was a bass for hire. He made his living as a jobbing session musician. So, Herbie, tell us, what was life like for a session musician back then?
Busy, because there was an explosion in the amount of work available for musicians, and you only need to play on a couple that become hits and you become flavour of the month.
And Lou Reed, how did you end up working for him?
David Bowie phoned me up, because I've done a lot of work for him on things like Space Oddity, and Lou Reed, I think, had left Velvet Underground, and David had said, why don't you come to London to do some recording? And I was booked to be at Trident Studios at 10 o'clock that Monday morning. And there was Lou in the control box. And I'd taken my double bass because I'm an old double bass player, and I would always take that because I prefer playing it to the electric thing. I thought, can I do it on this? Because the song itself is dark. It seemed to work doing. And being an old jazzer, I thought, can I try something? Yeah, of course you can. And I overdubbed the bass guitar a tenth. That's 10 notes above what the double bass was doing. And it's quite a distinctive sound. Sounds stupid, doesn't it? But when you combine that with the other bass, it takes on another character.
That's what you created?
Well, yeah, but that's what old jazzers do. You put bits in. In those days, the recording rate for a 3-hour session was £12. But if you overdubbed, that means layered another instrument on top, you got double the money. Not that I did it for that reason.
There's a lot more to love about this album other than just Walk on the Wild Side. This has got 2 or 3 of Lou's probably most famous songs. Perfect Day is a gorgeous ballad with great guitar work from Mick Ronson. Also, the piano on that track is amazing. They use the same piano as McCartney did for Hey Jude. And this is just, every time I put this on, it's just an incredible listen. What else do we have on here? Satellite of Love. I mean, whew, they're, I don't have a ton of more descriptors to talk about how great this album is. But this was recorded also at Trident Studios in London. Transformer, released in 1972. Producer Richard Perry was working with Carly Simon for almost all of her albums, that incredible run of albums that she had in the early to mid 1970s. And they teamed up, of course, for the 1972 album No Secrets. You'll see I have a Speaker's Corner pressing of this. It also sounds incredible. Speaker's Corner is one of the best audiophile titles, labels out there, and very reasonably priced records, and very, very well done. Good packaging. They're one of my favorite audiophile titles. If you can find an original of this that is pretty quiet, go ahead and grab it. Those were mastered at the mastering lab by Doug Sachs, and they sound amazing. The issue that we have with this album is it included the amazing song You're So Vain, and You're So Vain was so popular that this album sold millions of copies, and it was played quite a bit. So finding a relatively quiet, clean pressing can be a challenge, but if you can find them, they're $8 or $10, and this is a pretty easy album to find. But if you want the creme de la creme, go look for that Speaker's Corner pressing, and it comes back in print occasionally, so just kind of keep an eye out for it. Another fantastic track on this album is The Right Thing to Do. Carly played piano on that song, again using that same piano that we've talked about earlier. But that was Carly Simon, No Secrets, famous cover photo shot in London during the recording sessions in the late fall of 1972. So after The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway tour, Peter Gabriel, well, kind of midway through the tour, apparently, Peter Gabriel informed the band that he was done as far as Genesis was concerned, and he fully intended to move on as soon as the tour was over. So for the first time, moving into their 7th album, Genesis were without a lead singer. And there were various thoughts in the band that they could kind of continue. Phil Collins, there's interviews out there where he thought the band could just kind of continue without any vocals and become an instrumental band. Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford, I think they all kind of thought about this a little deeper and thought, well, that would be boring not having vocals, and probably some people from the record company as well. So when Genesis went into the studio in 1975 to record A Trick of the Tail, they did not have anyone lined up to be their lead singer for a really nice collection of songs that they had worked up between Tony Banks and Rutherford and Collins. Steve Hackett was so concerned that the band was coming to an end after Gabriel left that he started work on a solo album. Some of those songs eventually, or ideas, made their way onto A Trick of the Tail. But this is an important piece of work by Genesis because it kind of proved to the critics out there and to the American market that they could survive the loss of Peter Gabriel and kind of continue on as a strong prog rock band at that point in time. Famously, when they started recording at Trident, they were going to work on the song Squonk, a fantastic song. And they had 2 or 3 different people that they actually tried out on vocals. None of them could kind of hit the right key that the song had been written in, and it just wasn't working. So Collins said, hey, let me give this a shot. So he went ahead and did lead vocals on Squonk. The rest of the band kind of listened to the playbacks of the various takes that Collins had recorded and kind of unanimously thought, well, this sounds amazing. And Collins, has had, he played lead on 1 or 2 previous songs on Genesis albums. Genesis Freaks, you can chime in on the comments and let me know what songs those were, please. That'd be great. But the band decided, we've got our lead singer, it's going to be Phil Collins, and the rest is kind of history. This song, Genesis went ahead and did 2 or 3 different promotional videos, were kind of a new thing for the band at that point in time in the late 70s. And this is one of my favorite Genesis albums, the first without Peter Gabriel. This was recorded at Trident Studios as well, released in 1976. That's a wrap on episode 3. 5 iconic albums, one amazing, legendary recording studio. Today we talked about Trident Studios in London. I'm sure people will probably chime in. There are oodles and oodles of fantastic albums that were recorded there. But I wanted to keep the video length a little bit down today, so I decided just to do 5. But there are some fantastic pieces of work out there. Do a little Googling or go on the Hoffman forums and you will soon find out. Check your collections, but between 1970 and 1980, there's lots of great albums that were recorded at Trident. Thank you very much, everybody. If you're new to my channel, I would really appreciate it. If you like what you're seeing, go ahead and subscribe. Just hit that button to subscribe. You'll be notified whenever I put out a new video. I have been around in the vinyl community since January of this year and fully intend to keep going. I'm having a lot of fun. So thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody else, regular viewers, subscribers. Appreciate all the comments, and we'll see you very soon.